Welcome in, everybody, to Fantasy Pros. This is the Fantasy Fest 2023 edition. It's me, Joey P, Joe Pisapia, and today, for the next 6 hours, we have got you on lockdown for everything you need to know in the world of fantasy football. Many of you have drafted already. Some of you still have drafts to go, but we all have a season ahead of us, and we are so excited to be here with you, dropping knowledge. We've got incredible live segments going on for the next few hours, just having incredible discussions with incredible minds in the fantasy football industry. And don't forget to like the stream, and don't forget to subscribe to youtube.com/fantasypros, because every time you do, an angel gets its wings. Now, every time you do, and you click that little bell till it goes ding and a new piece of content drops here, you'll be a better fantasy football player. And that's the idea. That's what we're all here for. And the stream today and the Fantasy Fest is brought to you by bettingpros.com. I, Joey P, will be hosting the NFL betting show this year over at Betting Pros. So if you haven't, go subscribe there as well. We've got the new BP app that has just been rolled out here for 2023 football season. It is incredible. Download it now. Sync all your sports books. Start betting smarter, not harder. And the Betting Pros content on the YouTube channel this year and on the podcast is going to be better than ever. We're going to help you win some money. We've got a great NFL contest going on as well. You can join. We're giving away free upgrades. We're giving away Fantasy Pros and Betting Pros swag and some other big prizes, including a JSN autographed jersey. But we're here to talk football. And of course, two of my favorite human beings on the entire planet, Mr. Big Pod Energy himself, Andrew Erickson, is here. And from The Athletic, my dear friend and breakfast buddy every single year, the one, the only, Jake Ciely. Jakey, it's great to have you here on the program. How many drafts do you have left now that we are at August 30th?
I hope it's just, I laugh because I think it's just one. I think it's just my home league. And then I'm going to find out like Tuesday. I signed up for this one. I forgot about that. That's why I say I hope. I think it's just one.
I have at least two. I feel like somehow I'll get roped into another one. Erickson, how about you? How many drafts you got left before the season actually begins?
I think I have like 5 drafts, a wedding to go to. I got a lot of stuff to do still between now and week 1.
There you go.
And that's why football season.
It's not my wedding. I was strict. No September. It's got to be the summer.
Well, the boys and I are going to go ahead and take a look at some draft day values, because if you're like us, you still got some drafts remaining, or maybe you just want to hear about some of these names that potentially you might have selected, and they might pop up here in this conversation. So, Jake, since you are our esteemed guest here, let's hit number one here. Let's talk about a player that you think is a great draft day value still on August 30th, despite all the hype, despite everything that's been going on the recent weeks where we've been talking about players and injuries have happened and players have been shooting up ADP. Who remains a value for you? Who's first on your list?
I love that. I'm going to change up because originally it was like, oh, running backs and wide receivers. And then I sat here and I'm like, you know what? We don't talk about quarterbacks enough because we always talk like, wait on quarterbacks. This year you can go a little bit early. And then I looked and I was like, yeah, maybe I can find one. And it immediately jumped out to me seeing QB 16, top 10 in fantasy points per game, top 10 overall. Everybody loves JSN. Like you said, you got a giveaway with him as the third option for Geno Smith now. And everybody's just like, nah, he's not going to do it again. He's not going to come close. Like, look, 16th behind Kirk Cousins and Aaron Rodgers and all. Like, I mean, it's just the fact that you can get him in the 10th round and you can get your quarterback that if I missed on the top 6, I'm waiting until the end game. Anthony Richardson, Geno Smith, Daniel Jones, and all those guys are going before him, and you can get Geno in the 10th round, 16th quarterback over. That's just absurd to me. I get it's 1 year that we have an example, but why do we love his offensive weapons? And we're going to project them all for top 20, 2 of them in the top 20 wide receivers and the third inside the top 40, but Geno can't be a top 10 quarterback again.
I agree with you 100%. In fact, it's strange, Jake, because I feel like when we were doing drafts in July, and we were doing best ball stuff, that Geno was kind of going in the, top 10 quarterback-ish range or whatever. And then recent weeks, he's just basically sitting out there free. I did a draft last night where I ended up taking him later than the 10th round. He was well off that board, a 14-team league the day before. Another draft where he just went far too late, ended up on my roster. And I just don't understand exactly what you said. It's like, well, we like the receivers, and they're going to be challenged a lot in the year. But yet Geno Smith, it couldn't possibly be all real. So do you really think it's just a matter of there was so much negativity around Geno Smith all these years that after the 1 year, people don't want to buy in? But I don't understand, because what happened? People were buying in July. Why aren't they buying in August?
I'll compare it to a wide receiver. It's from last year. It's Garrett Wilson. So Garrett Wilson fell in NFL draft circles. I put that in quotes because people go back. People are like, oh, like Garrett Wilson's amazing. And that's not true. No, go back and look. We got fatigued. Like Garrett Wilson was amazing in Ohio State, and everybody wanted the shiny new guys that we weren't talking about yet. That's kind of what's happening with Geno. It's like, oh, the Giants offense is looking great with Darren Waller in the second year. Let's move up Daniel Jones. Oh, Anthony Richardson is going to run for 9,000 yards because nobody else is in that backfield. Let's move him up. Kirk Cousins, Jordan Addison, like Kirk Cousins does it and everybody just gets moved up. And then it's like, man, Geno Smith. Yeah, we remember playing that game. It was fun, but whatever. Like we're just going to keep moving them down. And I'm all for the people that sit out there and they're like, how can you have 2 wide receivers inside your top 30, but the quarterback's only QB 18? That's only 2 guys. We're talking about 3 wide receivers and a pass catching running back that we all have value in. The numbers have to come from somewhere. So if you have all these guys receiving this and Geno's throwing for 3,800 yards, 4,000 yards, 25, 30 touchdowns. And then the biggest thing I think people overlook, Joe, he ran for 300 and 350 last year on the ground, somewhere around there. 1 rushing touchdown. That's not normal. Like normally, if a quarterback's running 300-400 yards, you usually get 2, 3, 4 rushing touchdowns. So I think there's even room for better this year.
Andrew Erickson, I never get tired of you. We spent an hour on a live stream together yesterday, and here we are back at it again. Give me a name, in your opinion, that's undervalued still as we sit here right on the precipice of the big draft weekend.
It's Mr. No Touchdowns himself, Diontae Johnson. Wide receiver 28. Routinely, you can get him in round 6. This guy's a target machine. 5th in total targets, 7th in receptions, 9th in target share over the past 3 seasons. Who's been Kenny Pickett's #1 target in the preseason games? Yeah, George Pickens is making all these highlight catches on a small sample size, which is what you get from a big play wide receiver like George Pickens, but the steady, consistent targets are still going to Diontae Johnson, like they have been for the last 3 years. So for me, Diontae Johnson in the PPR setting is just a screaming value. Like, I don't see how this guy doesn't finish as a top 30 wide receiver, and that's where you're going to have to draft him. Sometimes you draft him even later than that. And like sleeper, his ADP is so low. You can just get him for free. So I think Diontae Johnson, he was someone I looked at as undervalued when we started this process back in February. George Pickens, the hype has kind of gone up and down a little bit. The hype is back up for George Pickens. People are like, I don't want Diontae. I want George Pickens, the sexy guy who makes plays down the field. Well, I want the guy who's going to get all the targets. And for me, that's Diontae Johnson.
There you have it. And look, some of these names we're talking about, don't forget, as you're going into these final drafts, if you haven't already, make sure you get Draft Wizard, download the app, go to fantasypros.com/Draft Wizard. Use the tools that we have. Start earmarking these guys on cheat sheets. Use Draft Intel, which is an incredible feature. Again, if you're still kind of new to some of the tools, I can't urge you enough how good this tool is because it'll tell you the tendencies of your league mates that you've been drafting with for 3 years, for 5 years, for 10 years. And wouldn't it be nice to kind of have a little intelligence of what's going to happen there? You kind of feel like you know what's going to go on, but you can practice against the robots of members of your league to prepare you for your actual draft. This is not some simulation in the ether. This is something very special. Draft Intel, I've been getting messages all over from everybody who's been using it for the past few weeks, and they are just blown away by it. So go check it out again on Draft Wizard. Draft Intel, one of many amazing features here we have at fantasypros.com on our draft software. So sync your leagues today. Go do it. Don't wait. Jake, I don't want to wait anymore for your second name. Give me a guy who's got a good value still remaining on the board.
Still remaining is the key words there because I was not expecting to be able to say this player's name because we've talked about him. I've talked about him. Our site's talked, like everybody's talked about Jahan Dotson to this point. So I'm speaking specifically for people who haven't drafted, maybe late to the party, casual leagues. And that's not talking down to people. Like there are casual work leagues. There's casual leagues where people aren't paying attention. That everybody in the industry is on the Jahan Dotson train. Like we have people falling off the 15th cart behind us at this point. But when you look at it, he's still in the mid 30s. He's still outside, depending on average, like 7th, 8th round range. And as Joe knows, we were just in the draft the other day where a quote unquote expert took him at the end of the 4th round. Like that's going too far. Like don't do that. Don't get so caught up in like, I have to have Jahan Dotson that I'm going to pull Cam Akers from 2022 and take Cam Akers in the 4th round. And then it could possibly go belly up. But the thing about Jahan Dotson is I already thought he was going to be the 1 and McLaurin was going to be 2, that being 1A and 1B. They were going to be super close. But the reason I really liked them was the Sam Howell comparison I made for him coming out of college was Ben Roethlisberger. And now I'm not about to say Jahan Dotson is this wide receiver. I'm just saying for what he brings. Antonio Brown brought Ben Roethlisberger a skill set similar to what Jahan Dotson said. He's not going to score 300 fantasy points. He is not Antonio Brown. But what he brings is very similar, especially with the junk that he played with at quarterback last year. Sorry, Taylor Heineke, I love you from ODU. But let's be honest, it was junk in that offense last year, and he still led the team in end zone targets and end zone receptions, which are touchdowns because they're more valuable than red zone. And that was a big gap. He had 6 end zone touchdowns. Second place was McLaurin with 2, and he wasn't even a starter for the majority of the year. He is the new number 1 for this team. He's sitting in the mid-30s behind names like Mike Evans. You brought up Diontae Johnson. I think he's a good value too, but he's behind Diontae Johnson, Michael Pittman, his situation, Christian Kirk. Like, he should be inside the top 25.
All right, fair enough. Now, if we go up to the top 25, quick follow-up, would you take him over Brandon Ayuk?
I would, honestly. I know Dotson's role. Ayuk could be the one. He could be the 3, and that's why I would take him over Ayuk.
All right, fair enough. Erickson, back to you. Let's get another name on your list of draft day values. Who do you have?
Going with running back for the Chicago Bears, Khalil Herbert, RB32. You can grab him in round 7 or 8. He's a starting running back, and he's going outside the top 30 running back. So I don't get it. I mean, there's 32 NFL teams. So we're saying at RB32, Khalil Herbert is the worst starting running back in the NFL for fantasy. That doesn't make a lot of sense to me. So I think that he's a value, because for him to lose his job to Roschon Johnson, who's kind of become that second running back in the depth chart, he's seemingly surpassed Deontay Foreman. Doesn't that mean Herbert's going to have to struggle at some point or get hurt? Because every time Herbert plays, he's electric with the ball in his hands. 8 games over the last 2 seasons with at least 13 or more touches, averaged fantasy RB1 numbers at half PPR scoring. So I'm trying to figure out a scenario where everyone's concerned, he's going to lose the job to Roschon. He's going to take over on third downs. Okay, well, what happens on first and second down? It's going to be Khalil Herbert ripping off massive runs because of having a mobile quarterback under center is going to make these lanes wide open. So is he going to catch a lot of passes? Probably not. I don't care. He's going to be rushing for 60, 70, 80 yards per game with some touchdown equity in a Bears offense that I think is going to be drastically improved from last season. So it's one of these things where Khalil Herbert's good. He's a starting running back. Draft him. Be happy. Like, we don't need to pick holes at every single guy. Like, well, he doesn't play on the third down of every single drive. When he's on the field, he produces. And that's good enough for me, especially at RB32 price tag.
One of my favorite things is that every analyst that's worth their salt in the fantasy football community has an impression of what other fantasy football players sound like. It's my favorite thing. Jake does it. Everybody does it. They all sound like that. Some amalgamation of that. I don't understand. Why can't I take Jahan Dotson in the 3rd round? What's wrong with that? Everyone has that impression. It's one of my favorite things. I would like to do an entire show where we all just use that voice.
Just talk like that the entire time.
Just talk like that the entire show.
That's the sound of like going lowercase, uppercase, lowercase, uppercase, lowercase. Like that's actually the sound you make with that.
That's the sound.
Can I add on real quick for Andrew?
Fine,
yes,
I'll let you do it.
2 things. Every game that he's had at least 10 carries, 50 or plus more yards on the ground, 5.1 yards per carry. Second thing, everybody talks about the pass blocking. Andrew even pointed that out. By the way, his grade in pass blocking last year, better than Aaron Jones, Joe Mixon, Christian McCaffrey, Dalvin Cook. I'm pretty sure those guys didn't have a problem with concerning pass blocking.
Yeah. All right. Quick question here from Dylan. This is a good question. Is it worth trading away Jonathan Taylor and Jordan Addison for Aaron Jones? Jake, would you make that trade?
100%.
I agree. 100%. Erickson, you too? Mm-hmm. Go get Aaron Jones. Let's go, Dylan. All right. Let's get to another name on your list. Jakey, who do you have?
Similar to Aaron Jones, and what stylistically should be here. We're talking about starting running backs, and we're talking about somebody who doesn't have the concern of Khalil Herbert on third down because he is a decent pass blocker, but a really good pass catcher. Shout out to the late great of our friend Mike Tagliere, who pointed out that it's very hard for a top 10 running back to be on a bottom 10 offense. The Buccaneers offense could be bottom 10. We know that. Baker Mayfield, Kyle Trask possibly comes in. That being said, you don't have to pay top 10 price. You don't have to pay top 15 or top 20 or top 25 because for some ungodly reason, Rachaad White, with walking into 250, maybe even 300 touches, is going as RB27 still as of today. Somebody just asked me recently, why do I have Rachaad White inside my top 20? And I said, because if I'm looking at Rachaad White versus other running backs, J.K. Dobbins, question mark with that knee all of a sudden is like, is it really the pup was the issue or is it contract? Well, I know the answer that I don't have to worry about is Rachaad White. Breece Hall and Dalvin Cook, split. When does one take over for the other? I have a question. I have an answer. Rachaad White, he's got all the work. Alexander Madison, Rachaad White, he has all the work. The answer is Rachaad White, people.
There you go. The answer is Rachaad White, everybody. Obviously, Jake has no fear whatsoever regarding Chase Edmonds
And
or
now he's going to
anybody
be
else.
Cam Akers.
Yeah, there you go. All right, let's get to another name on the list here. Andrew Erickson, what do you have for us next?
It's going to be this year's Chris Olave, rookie wide receiver. Zay Flowers for the Baltimore Ravens, wide receiver 43, often goes outside the top 100 overall players on most draft platforms. He's a first-round rookie wide receiver with a clear path to targets outside the top 40. Come on, like it doesn't need fantasy football doesn't have to be hard, guys. Like it's such an easy bet to make on Zay Flowers coming in with a decorated college pedigree from Boston College, super productive, first round draft capital. He can play inside, he can play outside. The best availability with this Baltimore receiving room is who's on the field. And the guys he's competing with besides Mark Andrews, Rashad Bateman, and Odell Beckham Jr. have shown no consistency whatsoever to be available on the field when it matters. So I think Zay Flowers is such a good bet to make. Betting on rookie wide receivers, especially first rounders, is such a good way to get value in your fantasy drafts. And I feel comfortable pulling the trigger on Zay Flowers as someone as my wide receiver 3. If I got to start in week 1, I don't even really feel that bad about it. They're playing the Houston Texans week 1. I'm not afraid of the Texans.
I ain't afraid of the Texans.
So for me, especially where you don't even have to draft Zay Flowers as a starter, you can throw him on your bench week 1, and you're going to see him blossom into Lamar Jackson's favorite target at the receiver position. So I just absolutely love Zay Flowers and can't stop drafting him.
Yeah, me neither. Jake and I own the league that we just drafted. I drafted Zay Flowers. I've got Zay Flowers in your flex leagues. I'm drafting Zay Flowers everywhere. No one, I don't think, has him as high as I do in the rankings on fantasypros.com. We've got a few names left to get through and a few minutes left to do it. Before we do, just a reminder, we're giving away free stuff because that's what we do here on Fantasy Pros. We brighten your day with fantasy football and free things. And if you want a chance to win a glorious 36-inch fantasy championship trophy for your league, courtesy of our good pals over at Trophy Smack, the #1 destination for epic fantasy trophy tournaments and rings. They do everything over there. You need to subscribe to the Fantasy Pros YouTube channel right now. Drop a comment below on this video. That's it. That's all you have to do. Subscribe, comment, boom. You could win, and we'll be announcing the winner today on the show. That's very exciting. So stick around for the Fantasy Fest and make sure you turn those notifications on. Click the bell till it goes what? Ding, everybody. So you can claim your prize. Thanks for Trophy Smack. Really cool stuff there. I got a bunch of trophies from all those leagues that I'm in with Jake. Oh, they're so heavy to carry, Jake. So heavy to carry them into New York. All right, let's get to another one of your guys on the list here. We've got 4 more names, 10 minutes. We can do this. Go ahead, Jake. Who do you have next?
Well, it was a little while ago, but I love the transition I was holding on to from Andrea there. Is that the best the process here is
I'm
availability.
sorry my ad read ruined your perfect transition, Ciely.
I just love when he said the best part is
talk about
availability.
divas.
The availability in the backfield for the Seattle Seahawks right now is Zach Charbonnet. And I was already down on Ken Walker because Kenneth Walker is supposed to be good. Look at him. He's supposed to be good in short yardage. That was one of the least efficient part of his games last year. I'm not saying he can't improve. And explosive plays are part of his game. But you talk about availability. What have we never learned in fantasy, seemingly, from Pete Carroll is that if anybody believes in the replaceability of running backs in the NFL, it is Mr. Pete Carroll, who is like, oh, I have a healthy dude. I'm just going to put that dude out there. Oh, Chris Carson, by the way, back in the year, every time he got hurt, it was the next one up. Chris Carson was actually replacing somebody who got hurt. Like all these years, he goes with somebody. I think this could be a 50-50 split out of the gate if they are both 100% in week 1. And Charbonnet's passing down work and the fact that he's actually shown to be pretty good in the short yardage for what people assume about him. I'm not saying Charbonnet is going to be the lead and Walker's the backup, but it could happen. And guess what? You're still getting Charbonnet in the 10th or 11th round. That's right. You fill out your roster and then you can say, hey, Charbonnet, you're on my bench. That's cool. So I love some Charbonnet. And of course, because then you can say, pour yourself some Charbonnet. Then
I was waiting. I was like, there's no way we're getting out of this.
Terrible cliches. Not cliches.
God. And I have you on these shows anyway. I don't know why I do this to myself. I will agree with you and I hate to do it, but you know me, I'm a very heavy wide receiver build kind of fella. And Charbonnet is one of my favorite targets because the draft capital, because I agree with you about Ken Walker and that assessment there. And to me, I look at Charbonnet as such a discount that it costs you nothing to find out. It's all upside at the current ADP of where he's going. Erickson, let's get to another name on your list. Draft day values. Who do you have?
Jaylen Warren, Pittsburgh Steelers running back, currently a running back 45 in ADP, goes outside the top 120 picks, outside the top 10 rounds. Basically what I'm saying here is once your draft is in the double digits, it's time to draft Jaylen Warren. Like that's your trigger. It's like, oh, round 10, round 11. All right. Time to draft Jaylen Warren, regardless of where he's in ADP, because I think that he's just the perfect bench running back for your roster. Look, he was super efficient as a rookie, third in rushing success rate, second in the class in terms of yards per route run behind only Breece Hall. And everything we've seen come out of Steelers training camp, everything we've seen in the preseason suggests that he's going to have a role alongside Najee Harris. Could he be better than Najee Harris? We don't know, but clearly the Steelers want to get him involved. So he has potentially standalone value as a player alongside Harris, and Harris obviously takes on a lot of volume. He gets hurt, he gets banged up. Jaylen Warren could be looking at a 3-down role in a Pittsburgh Steelers offense that I think a lot of us are pretty excited about with Kenny Pickett entering year 2. So Jaylen Warren is one of these players that I'm pinpointing. I'm happy to draft him around ahead of ADP because it's still outside the top 100 picks that you're taking him. So you really have no excuses for not drafting Jaylen Warren this year.
Yeah. The Jaylen Warren thing, I see the role. I get it. I'm excited about the upside. But I feel like there's been so much hype with Jaylen Warren that almost Najee Harris is getting discounted too much. Therefore, I find myself hanging a ton of shares of Najee Harris because he's still the one there. And I think he's still the clear one. How do you feel about Warren and Harris real quick before we get to the last names on your list?
I have no problem with both of them. I do have a decent amount of shares in Najee Harris because Mike Tomlin needs to change his stripes. Like Mike Tomlin has been bell cow captain for the NFL for years. And I'm not saying Warren can't sprinkle in more and even potentially make things more efficient because Najee Harris was pretty damn inefficient last year. But if you take
the O-line was so bad, Jake.
Well, no, and here's the second part of it.
Better.
If you split it when they hit their bye, and he kind of got that week off to get 100% from the list. Frank, everybody forgets at the beginning of last year.
I'm glad you said that.
The list Frank was an issue. He was much better after the bye. Again, I'm not saying Warren can't steal some now, and I like the pick because if Najee Harris gets hurt, Warren's a handful, 5 or 6 running backs that we know is going to get bell cow work if the lead goes down. But it's not mutually exclusive to say Najee Harris is a discount and Jaylen Warren is still a good pick. Like,
agreed.
Both are true.
There you go. 2 truths. No lies right here at Fantasy Pros. Don't forget, everybody, if you're watching us live, we did used to play that. Jake and I used to host a radio. Meany could never do it right. I think it did not translate into Canadian for him very well for some reason. I don't know why. Our good pal, Chris Meany. But yes, for those who don't know, Jake and I, 5 days a week, used to talk to each other. What a glorious time to be alive. For a couple of years, just magic. Just award-winning radio, by the way.
Somehow
Jake.
You didn't kill me. I know.
I still haven't after all these years. It's coming though. One of these days, it's going to happen. By the way, if you're watching here live right now on Fantasy Pros YouTube, and I know that you are, just stick with us because when this stream is over, it'll automatically give you the next installment of our Fantasy Fest, and we'll back again with more live action for you. So this is going to be rolling here all day. So don't panic. One video is going to go to the other. Just stay with us. If you ever, lose track of anything, just go to our YouTube channel. Again, subscribe if you haven't already. Like the stream too. Please, for Jake's sake. Every time he gets a like, he gets another $1 towards another Funko Pop he could buy. Let's get to the number 1 guys on your list. You got 2 more each. Jake, let's go to you first. Give me another draft day value that you have out there for everybody to know.
Yeah, I love, again, what Andrew said, by the way, outside the hundreds, outside the 120. And you just say, these are gambles. I want all upside of my bench. I'm not trying to draft Robert Woods. I love you, Robert Woods. I'm sorry, but I don't want replaceable guys on my roster. I want guys who can finish potentially in the top 25 at running back or wide receiver. And we've been playing this game of who's up next for the Chiefs? Well, there's somebody who stepped into Juju Smith-Schuster's role, and there's somebody who has a very similar skill set and a very similar ability to get open for Patrick Mahomes, and potentially even more so than Juju Smith-Schuster at this point of his career. It's always been, Kadarius Toney can't stay on the field, and there was plays designed for him. It wasn't like, he was targeted 40%. Well, that's great if you're only on the field for 7 plays. And Marquez Valdes-Scantling is the other starter. We know him and what he brings, but Rashee Rice, rookie.
I had to
Justin Ross
the other day because I said it wrong. It's Rashee Rice.
I know. I want to say the other thing, but Justin Ross, I love. I hope he's the best. But as of right now, what are the odds? The odds right now is what brings to this offense that was redesigned when Tyreek Hill left, and they kind of rebounded. Remember the year at the start off when everybody's like, "What's wrong with Patrick Mahomes?" And they started playing
the voice
game. With,
you did it.
You see, there you go.
Yep.
I did the voice.
It was going to come out.
The shorter game. I think Skyy Moore brings what they need in this offense, like Juju did, but potentially even 1,000 yards and a handful of touchdowns. But again, even if we're wrong, that's what Andrew said. Even if we're wrong at this point, at a pick 120, and it ends up being Rashee Rice, who cares? It was a pick 120. He was like the second or third guy on your bench.
Take him too. Take Rice too. There's room in 5,200 yards that Patrick Mahomes threw for more than one person to eat.
That is true.
There can be
I hope
just
it's him.
It'd be a nice story if it was, but I know that my most rostered players so far, Zay Flowers, Skyy Moore, Elijah Moore, those are three of the top ones, and Rushy Rice. Because if I don't get Skyy Moore, then I'm throwing
No
a dart at
DJ
Rice
Moore?
later on.
Just all the moops?
You know what? I can't do the Moore
You just let that kind of
triumvirate.
go right over your head
Hard
with
to
the
pull
Seinfeld
off on
reference.
ADP. Yeah, no, I hear you. Mandy Moore might have been available in the draft, though. I don't know. I think she's single now. Andrew Erickson, let's get to your last name on the list of draft values. Who do you have?
Another rookie wide receiver. 25-1 betting odds. Follow me on the Betting Pros app. I just bet this. 25-1 Marvin Mims to lead all rookie wide receivers in receiving yards this year. He's a starter week 1. Jerry Jeudy is going to miss games to start the year, and who knows how healthy he's going to be with his hamstring injury. Courtland Sutton, potentially washed at this point. Like, he did not look great last year. Marvin Mims, rookie, coming in, super productive from Oklahoma. Great production at an early age. Broke out at 18 years old. He's a deep threat. He can win after the catch. He does it all. And Sean Payton traded up to get him like he did with Brandon Cooks, Alvin Kamara, Mark Ingram. Joe, maybe you've heard of those guys. Pretty good in fantasy football. So for me, Marvin Mims just checks off all the boxes of, hey, he's not a first rounder, so that's kind of why he doesn't come more expensive. But first round draft capital is tied to opportunity. Oh, you're a first round pick. That means you get to start right away. Well, Marvin Mims is a second round pick, and now he's going to start right away because of injuries on the depth chart. And I don't think he's going to lose his job as a starting wide receiver in this Broncos offense. And it would not surprise me whatsoever in week 1 versus the Las Vegas Raiders. And that secondary, Marvin Mims is going to be burning Marcus Peters on the outside for big touchdown production. And you're going to be like, oh, thank God I got that guy on my bench. Thank God he's not on the waiver wire because you drafted him with one of your last round picks. So for me, Marvin Mims, especially on some of these home league sites, ESPN, Sleeper, like, he's buried. He's like outside the top 70 receivers because it has not clicked and people are holding on to Jeudy as he's going to come back. I don't think he's going to come back very soon. So for me, Marvin Mims, I'm all in.
All in on Marvin Mims, Andrew Erickson, and he's been putting his mouth and his money in the same spot because in all these drafts we've been doing here, he's been drafting him everywhere at the end. So yeah, maybe you should go get that looked at. Now they're saying when we go to break, you go to the doctor and see if everything's okay. Jake Ciely, everybody, follow him over on X. It's not Twitter, right? It's X now. I don't know.
It's Twitter.
It's so just follow him at All In Kid. Check out his amazing work at The Athletic as well. Jakey, always a pleasure sitting down, talk with you, and look forward to competing against you all year in the myriad of leagues we're in together. Now, it's not just about values because we come back, we have more Fantasy Fest here for you. We're going to be talking about some of the busts. Jim Sanis of FanDuel, Jeff Ratcliffe of Sirius XM Fantasy and FTN join us to get a look at that. So don't forget, we're going to end here, this segment, and then it's going to redirect you directly to the next one. So we're going to be doing this all day long, brought to you by bettingpros.com. You go follow Erickson there too, bettingpros.com/Erickson. Do that. It's good for your health. And Andrew certainly knows a thing or two about health. All right, everybody. Well, stay with us. More Fantasy Fest 2023 from Fantasy Pros right after this.